I think these guys have failed so publicly and so spectacularly that it has caused people to seek out alternatives.
I see challenges from the quote, progressive left, unquote, and these people are too hard-headed to know that they're not popular.
They're not popular despite winning a bunch of primaries within the Democratic Party, winning mayoral races in New York and gubernatorial races around the U.S. Like, this is a guy who was advising on the last two political campaigns, which, if you remember, lost against Trump. And then, he advises Biden and things like that. So one of the things he was doing back in 2024 was talking about how we were too dominated by preachy females right before Kamala Harris got into the election. And then subsequently went to go call for Biden to drop out after his horrible debate performance. Broken clock, right twice a day, I suppose. But this is a guy who said Bernie back in 2016 and 2020 was too radical and a communist. Like, if you take this guy out of the Democratic Party, he sounds like any other Fox News correspondent. He's saying they're communists, even though they're not proposing any communist policies, and that they're a cult, even though all they're asking for is debt relief and healthcare. He said that student debt relief was bad, basically, and said that you'd be voting from a jail cell, which is not even something that Bernie Sanders would advocate for. But also, you shouldn't necessarily lose your rights just because you're in a jail cell. Like, what if you get caught with a little bit of pot? You get the lowest form of felony, and then you're in jail for 2 years, and what, now you can't vote? Like, okay, that seems weird. I get not wanting maybe murderers to vote, but we're talking about a very small percentage of the population, and when you get to that point. But this is a guy who has been wrong for years about what regular Democrats want, and he has pushed the party so far basically right that it's insane. He's one of these people who thinks that you can get 2 Republicans when you campaign with Liz Cheney, even though that lost the election. Wake the fuck up. This guy is just like a cancer on the Democratic Party.
People don't like him.
And he has been for 2 decades. They don't win elections. You just lost the last 2 presidential elections to a famously unpopular candidate.
Against Republicans. They just run against other Democrats.
2 of the last 3, sorry.
And their only message is, we're going to blow everything up.
James Carville's.
That's not their only message. Their only message is student loan relief, Medicare for all. They're the only ones progressives are the only ones offering a positive affirmation for the future of what the future could be in the United States. Establishment Dems like Carville, the only thing they have, because they stand for nothing and they fall for everything, is that they'll sell you out to corporations and they will stand against Republicans, except when it's convenient to their corporate donors.
Says this is all going to implode at the general election.
Yeah, as opposed to previous neoliberal Democratic candidacies that have been spectacular successes so far. Hillary Rodham Clinton in 2016 and Kamala Harris in 2024. There are a lot of people who are just like, this is not working. Cost of living crisis is completely out of control. Democrats haven't done anything about it. Republicans haven't done anything about it. There has to be a different alternative.
I have one simple philosophy about politics. Winning is anything stupid. Let's think of somebody.
He came up with one good slogan, it's the economy, stupid, back during Clinton's years, and now he just bases his entire life off of that one phrase. And also, by the way, he hinders people that would have led to a party that would be winning right now, like Bernie Sanders.
Ran for president twice. You know what I mean? He did twice. He lost.
As did your candidates. Like, he lost, by the way, because the establishment produced emails that they shouldn't have and basically hindered him at every turn. They made the primaries not a fair race. and then said, well, look, he lost the race after we shot him in the leg at the beginning of the race. Then he lost the race. Well, no, duh, dude. He was in the friggin' hospital. But he doesn't see it that way. He just likes to bulldoze over it and pretend like, well, he just lost, barring nothing else happening.
By a lot.
Because for progressives, getting out of the primary is a far more difficult battle than winning in the general. This is our theory. The reason for that is because Republicans don't have a vision for change. Socialists do.
Yeah. I think enough said on that one, dude. But if Carville wants to leave the party, then less power to him, I suppose. It's not his party to run, so nobody really gives a shit if he leaves. But yeah, the other one was on Picker. See if I can find a shorter version.
And finally, new rule, stop threatening to put everyone in jail who you just don't like. The way Senator Rand... Let's play.
Nah, that ain't the same one I was looking at. I'm looking for the piece of Bill Maher. Might be this one.
And finally, new rule, Donald Trump has told 1 trillion lies, but when he says the Democratic Socialists of America are actually communist, that's not one of them. And it's not hard to prove it, just by quoting the DSA and their candidates.
The DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, hold some socialist ideals? Do go on, Mr. Maher.
It gives me no pleasure to have to do this. I'd much rather keep going the good vibes from my summer vacation. I had an awesome one, by the way. I totally got a girlfriend at Bible camp. However, right before we left, Vice President J.D. Vance was on the show, and I told him that if the Democratic Party keeps going in the direction of the DSA, my vote was in play. And all I heard all vacation...
Oh no, one vote in California might be up for grabs. Meanwhile, nobody else feels that way. If you look at most polling, DSA candidates more closely align with the general populace on Gaza, on the Epstein files, on, well, he's in the same side on the Epstein files, but on Gaza, on the war in Iran, you know, this guy's never met a war he doesn't like, until they're unpopular 20 years later, and then he's always been against them. But that's just kind of the sleazebag that he is.
Oh my God, you're a Republican now. No, that's not what I said. I said
Hey.
in play. And here's why. Because not a week goes by where I don't read about some newly chosen, exciting new face in the Democratic Party. And then when that face opens its mouth, the Communist Manifesto or some other crazy
Yeah, because Karl Marx really talked about filling in potholes in New York a lot.
shit comes out. Again, let's just read the quotes.
Like reading the room, these are the candidates who everybody's been getting energized, progressives and general Democrats, when it comes to fighting back against ICE, all this other stuff. They are not all communists. I don't think you know what that word means, but whatever, dude.
The DSA platform says you work as much as you are able.
Abdul al-Sayed specifically has talked about being a capitalist, first of all, which would be antithetical to communism.
And no more than needed. If that was any closer to Karl Marx's dictum, from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs, they'd be sued for plagiarism. Not to...
I like that they put that out there, that statement, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs, as if it's a bad thing. They don't argue against the statement itself. They just say, look at it, it's a Marx statement. And what's wrong with it? Point out the holes in it. Like, there aren't any. It's basically just saying, like, you should work as hard as is needed for the society to function, and you should get what you need to be able to function within that society. It's essentially an Ouroboros that is like unrefutable.
Leave any doubt, New York Mayor Mamdani once tweeted Karl Marx's words exactly. They're not trying to hide it. Their most popular influencer, Hassan Piker, thinks communism is so groovy. He laments the fall of
the fact that he still would use a word like groovy, man. These people are dinosaurs and they have no idea what modern politics looks like. It's insane. The gerontocracy that's still trying to run this country.
two of the most murderous regimes in history, the Soviet Union and Chairman Mao's China. Mamdani's aide, his top aide, Sia Weaver, said if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize property, it's over, and impoverish the white middle class.
The government already takes private property. It's called eminent domain. We do it all the time.
What? That's a goal? You know,
I think he also doesn't understand the difference between middle class and working class.
you're supposed to.
One of them is a distinction with a difference in the middle class. The other one, when you're talking about working class versus the like owner class, in terms of like if you look at Marxist theory and things like that, what you're talking about is their relationship to the means of production, right? So owning class are people who would own assets. They'd own the factories. They do all this, but they don't actually work within the factories. They don't produce any widgets. They don't provide any service. They just, by virtue of owning the means of production, gain a higher benefit. And that higher benefit is the extracted labor of the people actually providing value to society by making the thing. I'm not talking about people who work within their own business, things like that, because those people could be working class and owning class. You could be both. If you own the business and you work at the business, you are simultaneously in both classes.
To scare people into voting for you.
Oh,
right?
yeah, no worries, dude. I figured your first messages were a joke when you're talking about giving them a 1 penny. I just had somebody come in and troll like last stream though, so I was a little prickly. Sorry about that.
One of the new soon-to-be Democratic Congresspeople, Darlisia Chevalier, supports seizing all properties from landlords and said seize the means of production. Mamdani has said the end goal is seizing the means of production. I think they want to seize the means of production.
What else is wild about this is we should have done that when it came to banking back in 2008. When we didn't, we had a financial crash that devastated working class people. And who got a bailout? Companies got a bailout. Normal people didn't get a bailout. They lost their homes. So you subsidize the losses of these corporations like Wells Fargo, which is still in business, Chase, which is still in business, all of these lenders who gave subprime mortgages out, knowing that they wouldn't get paid back just so they could get a quick payday in. They all got subsidized with TARP loans and bailed out. What happened to homeowners? Homeownership got consolidated away from individual homeowners after that because everybody got foreclosed on. So you consolidate the gains and you subsidize the losses. You basically make it a public issue when there's a loss, but it's a private gain whenever they need a bailout or need something from the government. So the idea that you wouldn't seize the means of production in that scenario where the industry has failed so hard that they are hurting everyone in society, why wouldn't you seize that means of production?
Now, maybe you missed that in school or missed school.
Or like affordability when you're talking about grocery stores. He's literally doing this with the means of production for grocery stores where he's putting out a grocery store that has 30% lower prices so that people can actually afford their groceries.
Altogether, but that's communism.
That technically is a communist policy, and yet it's one that explicitly helps people. Yeah, lobbying is one of the biggest issues, I think, in the US. It's kind of like a weird everything else stems from that. One of my earlier segments, we were looking at Max Miller and some other Republican candidates, as well as like Stevens in Michigan. And surprise, surprise, at the top of every single one of them was AIPAC funding them for the highest dollar amount, whether it was like a couple $1 million or $200,000. they were at the top of everyone's funding. And you don't put that kind of money down if you're not getting some kind of benefit out of it. So between them, between DTE Energy, people who want regulations cut, those are all the people who are directly funding politicians to run ads to try and get them elected so they can get their policies being reductions of regulations on their own industry so they can do things like the subprime mortgage crisis, which got a lot of money consolidated to a few people. And they keep trying to do that. So Citizens United, a lot of these dark money decisions where we can have PACs running around, and then we can have nesting doll PACs where it's like a PAC within a PAC where AIPAC funds this person, but they do it under a different name. So you don't know that it's AIPAC because obviously that PAC is poison right now for a political campaign. It's just, everything else flows downstream of that. Thankfully, we're seeing some populist left candidates who are able to overcome some of these financials, but you still have places like, I forget what state it is, but Cori Bush, who was running against an AIPAC funded candidate and was outspent like 10-1 or something like that and couldn't win the uphill battle. But the fact that they have to spend so much to beat a populist message, I think says a lot about the grassroots organization that a lot of like DSA and progressive candidates can get.
That's communism, which we
I think it's
tried,
hopeful.
and
I take it as a hopeful
work.
sign
Parties can
that you can
change
push back
sometimes,
against that much money with
You have to
enough
keep up.
manpower.
Who freed the slaves? Republicans, Lincoln, Democrats were the racist party back then. But then JFK got elected and it switched.
That's a huge simplification of the party swap, which was a literal just like switching of the ideologies. Because let me tell you what, it's not Democrats flying the Confederate flag these days. So it's pretty obvious who's on which side of that political debate.
The DSA itself has switched, even 5 years ago. It shunned communists. That changed. Things change. Now the coalition within the DSA, called the Marxist Unity Group, is in ascendance, and I must take them at their word when their words include, our commitment is to the long-term struggle for a fully liberated, classless society, in a word, communism. What do they have to do? Tweet out, elect more communists? Oh yeah, Sia Weaver did that.
Yo, socialists and communists said we should do that more? That's crazy.
Yes. Good, I'm glad you're shocked. People gotta realize this is going on.
Yeah, true.
Yes, my vote is in play. I'm not voting for anyone who thinks the wrong side won the Cold War or cheers for the Intifada like it's the World Cup. It's so ironic from the people who obsess about colonization. You know what's being...
It's interesting, too, that right in the background of the globalize the Intifada, it's literally saying, like, long live Palestine, Palestinian lives matter, things like that, because they're protesting a genocide. If the rebellion is against a genocide being committed, then it's the right thing to do. Yeah, dude, I mean, people who are watching, like your parents would watch Bill Maher, stuff like that. My parents watch Bill Maher, I'm sure, sometimes. Yeah. The only reason he makes the news is because he says some outrageous stuff, but there is a like boomer population of this, or segment of the population that does watch him. But I still think it's worth seeing what the other side is looking at. That's why I look at Fox News all the time. Mostly older people watch Fox News as well, but I think it's worth seeing what that voting bloc is looking at. I mean, hard disagree. The fact that he's on nightly news, I know multiple like older adults. I think you're just not running in groups where there's a lot of older people like 50 plus. You look at his demos though, and that's who he's hitting. And those are, by the way, some of the highest voting blocks in the US. Hate to say it because they generally vote really poorly for the rest of us, but he does reach a lot of people. Which is why I think it's worth pushing back on him, because he has really crappy ideas to sell to those people.
Last month, 2 Democratic congressmen released an open pledge. They want
Yeah, I agree, but compared to my 1,000 people a day, I'll tell you what, it's not a huge one.
wanted their fellow Democratic members to sign. It said, "We are capitalist, not socialist. We want safety, not lawlessness. We are proud, not ashamed of America." These should not be hard.
You're misunderstanding Neighborly. That's exactly what I'm saying. He has a bigger audience than me. If he had a smaller audience than me, then I don't think I'd bother covering it, because it'd be more of me platforming his bad ideas, even if it's to knock them down. But as long as he has a larger audience than me, that is reversed. So yeah, that is what I'm saying.
Hard words for a congressional Democrat to sign on to. You know how many did? 8.
He's smaller than some pundits, but I wouldn't say he's small by any means. I would say he used to be very large, and now he is just large. For an individual, late night show, compared to what Daily Show and other places get, he's still a relatively large platform.
8 out of 212. Guys, really, there's got to be an easier way to lose the swing states.
Man, am I. He probably isn't, but I'm not either, to be honest. Posture check for everybody out there.
And no, this nonsense is not where most Democratic politicians are right now, but it's also becoming a raging fire festival in the party that neither is anyone putting out. People are actually getting elected now who literally don't think we should have police.
So wait, doesn't that run antithetical? He said these people are crazy and they could never get elected, but then he's saying they're getting elected now. Just like we just watched Carville, saying like these people are bad because they can't win, while pointing at candidates who won.
Police or prisons or borders. And again, they're not lying about who they are. The media is. Ask Ms. Chevalier about the border. She says, yes, literally abolish the border.
And you know who wanted to give amnesty to a bunch of immigrants? Reagan did.
If you call a woman
it used to be a bipartisan effort to, by the way, give amnesty to immigrants because they are a net benefit to our economics.
And everyone gasps, and then the woman says, "Oh no, he's right. I'm literally a prostitute."
Wait, I'm sorry. Did he just call that candidate a whore?
Call a woman a whore, and everyone gasps, and then the woman says, "Oh no, he's right. I'm literally a prostitute."
Oh yeah, basically.
Believe her. This crowd literally wants to get rid of our form of government, the Senate, but also, and I quote...
Yeah, looking at some of the comments. DSA panic is obviously overblown. You can tell because they keep winning elections based on popular policies. The DSA candidates are running on pro-Palestine messages, anti-Epstein, release the Epstein file messages, talking about closing down the war in Iran. These are all things that mainstream Democrats do not agree with DSA on, but you poll people in those states and it's like a 70-30 issue. You don't get more clear cut than that in the US. And yet the Democrats won't adopt the more popular positions, but DSA candidates will. And that's why they keep winning despite the difference in money.
Replace the president and Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. Yeah, no biggie. Just taking the very essence of our government, which is three branches checking each other.
He keeps talking about the DSA platform, not individual candidates' platforms.
Who could be this nuts? I'll tell you who. Morons who are still wearing COVID masks in 2026.
Remember, not a Republican though. Just still head back in 2020. Head back during COVID, almost half a decade ago.
This photo is from the DSA meeting in Denver 3 weeks ago. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Since the far left, the far left, is overwhelmingly made up of affluent, ultra-woke white people, you raised your kids wrong. You told your precious brats that every brain fart was genius, and now
You told your precious kids that they could afford a house, that they'd be able to go to college, and that just having a simple 9 to 5 job would be enough to lock down being able to have a family and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's something I see whenever I talk to people that are 60 plus, is this idea that they think the world hasn't changed from what it was back when they were teenagers. And this stuff all happened for them. They could go and not even get a college degree, go get a construction job. Or if they got a college degree, then they could have like an upper middle class lifestyle in that like white picket fence, have a family, have a house and stuff like that, because you could afford that on a single job. And they refuse to accept that that's not the world we live in anymore. In order to have the finances to even own a home, let alone support a family, you would need at least 2 or 3 jobs, unless you have a college degree that allows you to have a 6-figure job. But even if you have a college degree, you might not get that job. You might still have like a middle, like $60,000 job or less. And if you have like less than $60,000 in a lot of places in the US, you ain't affording a home, let alone being able to support 1 or 2 kids. It's this whole like idea, if you just stop eating avocado toast, you'll totally be able to afford a home. I'm sure like not paying $6 at breakfast is definitely the reason that you're not able to afford a like $70,000 down payment or something, you know?
now those brain farts are becoming Democratic Party policy.
Yeah, exactly. Why get a $30K apartment when you can sleep under a $400 million bridge? That's funny. The ironic part is that bridge is only going to be $400 million because it was subcontracted out 14 times to be built, you know? When back in the day, we would have built that bridge directly from government work, which these people would call communist. But we would just directly hire the people who built bridges. That's why it used to be so cheap in the US. We wouldn't subcontract out to a company that would subcontract out to another company as a way of paying off a bunch of people who funded these campaigns. We would just hire the builders directly, and then they would build the bridge. If you look at even accounting for inflation, the cost of building infrastructure in the US has become astronomically higher than it used to be. And that's the main reason why.
Francesca Hong, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police, and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another, and then we know nobody's disposable. Well,
so that's not her saying that she's going to actively abolish prisons right now. That's her saying, wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world where they weren't necessary? Which, like, true. You know, she's not saying we're there yet or we're going to do anything with it, but
I mean, if you heard this kind of nonsense coming out of the mouth of a teenage beauty queen, it would be an eye roll.
yeah, no, exactly. Nobody's borderline abolishing police or prisons.
True blue Democrat ever, James.
Like, they're not even close to abolishing ICE. You know, we can hope. The fact that we're not even abolishing ICE when ICE has an agency, Customs and Border Enforcement, that is doing the exact same role as ICE and used to do that before 2008, as well as the fact that ICE is just actively infringing on our constitutional rights and killing U.S. citizens in the streets, and they still can't abolish ICE. We are so far from talking about like prison abolition, police abolition, anything like that, that to humor it in the conversation is just a red herring.
The same tent with.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything useful in the rest of Bill Maher's.
I'm not in that fucking political party. Now, Gavin Newsom disagrees. He says he's good with it because the party is a big tent. Well, you know what else?
Yeah, again, these are the same motherfuckers that will scream about vote blue no matter who, when their candidate who wants to do a genocide in Israel and wants like every bad thing that you don't, including increasing the cost of living and screwing up housing policies, they'll scream from the rooftops, vote blue no matter who. It's the progressives' fault that we didn't win. And then when a progressive wins, they do this and say how we would never vote for a progressive. We would never do this. It's insane, dude. They'll talk out of both sides of their mouth and say, well, we need to come together and vote for our person. But when it's your person, we don't need to come together at all. And we're not going to vote for them. Yeah, I think you're right about two-party system hopefully being cooked, man. Maybe I'm being optimistic here, but my hope is that DSA helps with a kind of tea party within the Democratic Party, because I don't see the two-party system necessarily breaking apart, but hopefully evolving the Democrats into a much more progressive group. And I think that would also make the progressive wing of the Democratic Party more effective within campaigns themselves, because they could have the funding and the populist message. If the Democrats allowed them to do that, allowed them to have the populist message and the funding sources from the Democratic Party, they would be unstoppable. But they know that that's contrary to the funding itself, because then corporations who bank on Democrats essentially putting a nice progressive face on their policies of tearing down regulations would kind of fall apart. So I've seen the JD Vance interview before. If anybody else has anything they wanted to look at, I was going to start. That was actually the last thing I had for